welcome to the PPM Playbook Podcast. I am your host, Laura Watts, and for each episode I will be talking to a guest to unpick the complexities of running effective programmes and portfolios of work. My company Verto is a veteran in this space, having supplied a programme management solution to public sector organisations since 2008. So, without further ado, let's get started.
Hello. Welcome to episode 1. I am joined today by two of my most favourite colleagues, Craig Dixon and Ross Mardell. Hello, both.
Hi, Laura.
I'd like to introduce you both individually. Ross, you founded Verto, which is pretty impressive. You've also worked extensively with local government organisations across your career. I do hear that there is a story about a donkey. Which I think we should bring up in a future episode.
It's definitely not one for today, Laura. But,
Let's not do it today.
I know it doesn't sound great, that actually, but yeah, there is a story about a donkey somewhere.
We'll cover that at a later date. Craig Dixon, you are an expert in Verto and in delivering PPM advice to all of our clients. I actually think you've probably got Verto for brains. Would I be right?
By now, probably, yes.
You've also worked with local government organisations in the past, so very well equipped to answer some questions on today's topic.
Thank you, Laura.
So we're going to be talking today about how a PPM tool can benefit an organisation.
We're going to be focusing on the importance and the benefits of a project and programme management tool, especially for the public sector, which is who we work with regularly. We're going to be talking about the benefits, not just for the senior management team, but for the PPM community.
Fab. And so, Ross, could you outline why would an organisation take up a project and programme management tool in the first place? What would be the reasons?
There's loads of reasons of why somebody would take a PPM tool. Generally, it's because somebody that's sitting at the top isn't getting the management information they need. So somebody is saying, I don't understand how our projects are doing, if they can define what project is, or they might have had an audit that says, do you know what, you're really rubbish at delivery. And so we've seen that with quite a lot of our clients where they've had an auditor come in and said, you need to improve that. And so they've looked at it and said, right, we may need to bring a PPM tool in to do it. But I think for me, one of the biggest benefits you get from bringing a PPM tool, okay, you get the management information, but that's almost a side gig. The real benefit is that actually you improve the quality of your staff. And that might sound a bit of an odd thing, but actually generally when you say to somebody, go do this project, unless they're a trained project manager, they have no idea where to start. If I just, said to most people, I'm going to give you this project to do, they go, yeah, all right. And they crack on and they do it and they just get on with it and do it to the best of their ability. But they wouldn't have a solid methodology around how to do that. And so it wouldn't be repeatable. They kind of maybe be okay. And they'd ask their boss and their boss would go, yeah, how are you doing? And he'd go, yeah, I'm sort of doing all right. And that's what PPM does but you bring a PPM tool in, it allows people to start to understand why they're doing the tasks they're doing, but also do the tasks that they need to do. Because often they don't even know what they need to do to get the project done. And so it allows them to that ability to understand what it is they're doing. And then they can repeat, of course, they can repeat that later. It's a skill they learn. And so they become much more advanced in the way they manage projects. And it allows the whole organization, if you do it across the organization, to upskill itself.
And just expanding on that as well, even if you are a project management professional, what you find is you go into a different organization and there will be nuances in terms of how projects and programs are managed and what's the name of the document in question that I need to complete in order to justify why this project's taking place. So we're doing status reports, progress reports. What level of granularity are you looking for? And so by bringing in a PPM tool, you can ensure that whether you're a PPM professional or not, you have that consistent, repeatable process in place. So people know that for your organization, this is how we manage our projects. This is best practice for us. This is the reporting that we're looking for. And it's all grounded in one place. We often find project managers, they come in and there are document templates sitting in SharePoint, sitting in C Drive, so on and so forth. And there's no single place for people to go to know what is it that I do. okay, you've got a repeatable process. Where does that start? What does that look like? And so by grounding it all in a single system makes it easier for everyone involved in projects and programs to know what you need to do at what stage every time. Repeatable processes, they allow you to become more efficient. They allow you to be more successful in what you're delivering. They're repeatable processes for a reason. They work. They are best practice. And so you can almost push across the organization a degree of consistency in terms of how projects and programs are being managed.
Right. So you spoke a lot there about, both of you, about best practice processes, things like that. So obviously, a sort of, I guess software is never really tangible, but a tangible tool can actually help drive the way you work and the opportunities to, work consistently and all of this sort of stuff. It's not actually just where you put your data.
No, exactly. It's a lot more than just here's a field, go and enter your risks, go and enter your tasks. It's about providing the foundation and embedding the processes instead of them sitting lost in a 15 or a 20-page PDF that's been based off of a Prince2 methodology or a more agile approach to what you're doing. It grounds it all inside of the system, and it makes sure that those processes are being adhered to without needing to go away in many different places to find that information and to understand what those processes are.
And I think if you talk about repeatable processes, we talk about those, and they're what the mainstay of project management is actually, can I do this as a repeatable process and get it done? And if you think about organizations who don't have a tool today, they do have tools. They have Excel, they have Word, they have PowerPoint, they have a whole bunch of probably just standard Microsoft tools that they're using to manage their projects. And they would say, yeah, we do it repeatable. And they do. Probably as individual teams, they all know how to run a project that allows them to run a smoking cessation class, for example. They all know how to run a project to change the light bulbs in every single building that we own, okay? Because they do it all the time. And so it's a repeatable process. But what you find is you get these little pockets all over the place in the organization where they're all doing stuff on their own spreadsheets, on their own Word documents, and their own PowerPoints that are all slightly different. And the inevitability of that, of course, is that when somebody above says, can you tell me what the status is of all of them? They all report slightly differently. And then because then the next layer of management above that says, oh, can you tell me how all of those are doing? They all report slightly differently. And so you end up with this it's consistency of delivery at the bottom, but complete inconsistency of the way you report it upwards. And trying to normalize that across the whole organization and actually say, this is the standard way that we operate as an organization, really helps to smooth that journey of how data is flowing across the organization.
So you touched on something earlier and just then as well, you're giving some great real life examples, but actually when does a project become a project changing light bulbs in an organization?
Yeah, I mean, who knows where a project starts and where, it's really difficult to say, isn't it? Because if I've got a building that's got 5 light bulbs in it, is it a project? No, it's not, is it? If I've got a building, I'm doing all of the buildings in my organization and it's 20,000 light bulbs, am I going to have do I need a process of doing it? Absolutely, I do. Am I going to group it by building? Am I going to group it by floor? Am I going to group it by department? How do I know how many I've done? How do I know how much it's going to cost? How much have I spent in light bulbs? How many light bulbs broke? All of those things. How much time has it taken me to do it? How much time do I need from contractors to do it? And now you'd say, my God, that's a massive project. But both of them are changing light bulbs. Right? It's just the scale at which you're doing it. And so organizations trying to define what a project is difficult for them. And it's difficult. And it's the same across every single organization you come at. Trying to define what is a project and what isn't is really, really difficult. Craig, you must have seen that as well.
Yeah, definitely. But what I've seen is there's a way to simplify it down into, is it a repeatable piece of work that you're doing? Is it a single piece of work that's going to have a start and an end date and that's going to lead to a very specific change, output, or outcome being delivered? If it doesn't fit that criteria, then is it a project? Maybe, maybe not. So when people ask me, well, what is a project? I say, is it a one-off piece of work that you're doing? They say yes. Okay. Is there defined outputs and outcomes to that? Yes. Are those outputs, outcomes, and benefits going to transition into your business as usual activities? Yes. Normally, that's a good starting point for what a project is. But when I've worked with project managers in the past, they often struggle to understand what a project start date is. Well, like what you were saying, when the project start? Is it the start of delivery? Is it when the project team's formed? When does that sort of project initiate? And it will be slightly different for different organizations, different PPM professionals. But as we've mentioned, generally, as long as it's a defined, non-repeatable piece of work that has specific outcomes or outputs that are going to be delivered as a result, that's a good place to start. And I normally say your project start date is the moment you get a project manager on the project itself is a good time for that to kick off.
Right. Well, that's quite interesting because, we've been talking at a project level. But what about an organization? When does an organization realize that it's time to bring in a tool?
Again, that will change depending on the organization. Normally, what you will find is that there has been a specific point in time when they have stepped back and gone, "Ooh, we're maybe not managing things as well as we should," or "We're always overspending on our projects," or "We're really struggling to just get a project register completed and to know what projects we're working on," and so on and so forth. So there will generally be different points in time for different organizations. For some, there might be a massive overspend on a piece of work that they didn't didn't see coming, and they're realizing that their management information is not up to scratch. Sometimes it's from the bottom up when they realize that project managers are really struggling with the lack of consistency and the lack of delivery, and therefore the reporting is a mess by the time it gets up to the top. There's lots more examples, but those generally for me is what I see, where they are struggling with management information. Things are not going well. They're overspending. Projects are being delayed. Resources are always spending more time than they should because no one's accurately following a repeatable process in order to understand what resource do I need, how long for, and when, so on and so forth. Ross, I'm not sure if you've got anything to add to that.
Well, no, I think you're absolutely right, Craig. It really does depend on the size of the organization as well, because it starts off relatively small. And usually when you start running projects, someone will go, "Oh yeah, I'll track that on a spreadsheet." And that's generally what happens. People start tracking on a spreadsheet and they might write a business case and they might do that in Word and that sort of stuff. And then gradually that process will increase. And, we're all using this spreadsheet because Bob created it 3 years ago and it really worked well for that project. And so we're just carrying on using Bob's spreadsheet. And then Bob leaves and then Jim takes over and he adds a bit more to the spreadsheet and it creates that. And then someone else copied Jim's spreadsheet and put it over here and he changed it subtly. And so you end up with this mess. You end up with this mess of possibly complex project information all over the organization. And it's not because they've done it deliberately. It's organic. It's just happened over time because it's just the way people work. People will always fall back to their default position of use Excel because everybody knows how to use Excel, right? And so what it then takes is the vision of somebody sitting probably above them saying, "Hang on a sec, guys, I can't get the information I need because it's all over the place." And that's the key for me.
Just to add to that as well, what you'll generally find is that they haven't got the boots on the ground. So one reason why I find a lot of people coming to us looking for a particular tool is that they have this need. They've got lots of projects going on. They don't have the people on the ground to manage it efficiently. Everything's tied to a manual process. There's only a certain number of project managers in the organization. Some have a PMO department, some don't. And so you can turn to a PPM tool and solutions like that to increase the efficiency of the people that you've got working for you. They can spend less time with the monotonous manual processes that come with project management and reporting up the chain, so that they can spend more time being project managers, managing projects, managing delivery, as opposed to being pulled away to those other activities that are maybe not best served in terms of their interest and their time.
The boots on the ground thing is really important because you're right. There aren't enough boots on the ground, and those people you just described as project managers aren't project managers.
No.
They're usually people who are doing another job and their boss has gone, "You run that project for me." And you go, "Yeah, all right." And the first thing the boss says is then, "How are you getting on with that project?" And you'll give an answer, but you're just a bloke who's fallen into it because your boss has asked you to do a project. And so there are very, very few proper project managers, usually we find, don't we? What maybe 10% of the people who are actually running projects are project managers. And that, again, why bringing a PPM tool helps, because it starts to allow non-project managers to act like project managers, and perhaps become project managers and learn how to be project managers.
Exactly, letting them juggle the BAU activities with the 3 or 4 projects that they've been asked to manage at any one time. And so bringing that tool in, promoting best practice, project management on rails, if you will, gives them a focal point to manage their projects and then get back to their day job, which is the BAU stuff that they're working on.
Okay, so we're talking about non-project managers running projects. We're talking about everybody knows how to use Excel. Then surely there's a leap, potentially a really big leap between people doing this, acting in this way, working on spreadsheets, and bringing in a robust project and program portfolio management tool. What about digital maturity? Is that an issue?
It can be. I think that we have now transitioned into a more digital age. More and more people are more and more familiar with using online tools. And depending on how you manage that change and that transition, it doesn't have to be such a leap. There is going to be a leap, but how you manage the change and how you manage that leap, I think, is where it becomes a lot more palatable for those people to get on board with a new tool. They're going from entering information in a cell in a spreadsheet to entering information on a field in an online tool. And so at its core, that shouldn't be too much of a leap from that perspective. But there are, of course, lots of areas around that in terms of what you're asking for them as a project manager, in terms of what you're looking for them to do to the record and stuff like that. But at its basic level, you're shifting the focus to using offline disparate tools to doing pretty much what you're already doing in an online tool. So I'm not sure, Ross, if you agree with that, and there are obviously layers to it.
Yeah, I think digital maturity is less of a problem these days, because would you say you have to go to Tesco's because you can't do your Tesco shop online? No, you can do your Tesco shop online, right? Your digital maturity is enough to do your Tesco shop online. I
struggle with self-serve checkouts.
I've
not been trained on those.
We possibly all struggle with self-serve checkouts, but it's the digital maturity. People are kind of over that a lot. They're used to using an online tool to do it, or a digital tool to at least capture information. And so, yes, Excel and Word just happen to be 2 examples of really tools that, they're generic tools that everybody knows how to use. But moving people over to doing that on perhaps a cloud-based system is no real great move. I think the biggest issue is one of cultural change, because I think what you're doing there is you're actually saying previously it's local, it's in my spreadsheet, I can access it, maybe my team can access it, I can look at the Word documents, my team can access it, I can access it. And what you're doing here is you're opening it up to a much wider audience. So it's that level of transparency that you're creating that you didn't necessarily have before, because it was hidden in your C drive or it was hidden on your SharePoint and no one else could see it. So nobody knew it was going bad, right? But now you put it into an online tool and all of a sudden your boss can immediately see it's bad, and your boss's boss can immediately see that things are going wrong. And it's that I'm opening it up to be more transparent, instead of going, everything's fine, and then running around going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. So it's that bigger cultural change, which is more of a problem than digital maturity. I think digital maturity, we've kind of got over that bridge a little bit, and it's more, we are still going to have to cope with cultural change forever. It is just one of those things when nobody likes change, really. Even if we're honest, nobody really likes change. And so moving from that, everything is localized to me, to all of a sudden everybody being able to see it and not being scared of that, and it not being, I'm going to get in trouble if I mark this project red, is a really big leap.
Exactly.
A really big leap.
Exactly. And I think it's about explaining and almost teaching them as to the benefits that gives to them. They don't have to worry about flagging something as red and I'm not doing my job properly. It's making sure that they get the support at the right time when they need it to get their projects back on track. But on top of that as well, the other benefits are around the visibility from other people. Means they're less likely to call you 3 times a week looking for 30-minute catch-ups on small things that they can just get from the system. They have to spend less time manual reporting, being asked by someone to produce an update very quickly at the drop of the hat. Because it's all in the system and because that transparency is there, they can spend more time using the tool to manage their projects. And the people who need the management information can get it without having to pull them away from what they're doing in order to provide that management information. So there's lots of benefits. And I just think it's about educating the groups who are maybe a little bit resistant to that change and are afraid of opening up the closet to the wider audience and explaining that it's more of a benefit than a problem. As project managers, your role is not to manage everything that's green. Yeah. Your job is to focus on the red and ambers and get them to green. And we're not wizards, we're not superheroes. There are going to be problems that you cannot fix or solve on your own. And so by having that visibility and that transparency means you can get the help you need at the earliest time possible to manage those reds and ambers and try to get everything to green.
Yeah, it does feel a little bit like a double-edged sword though, doesn't it? You know, you've got to empower people to be able to say, hey, flag, you know, this is not going so well. It's not on me. This is just the situation. And for the bosses and, you know, PMO leaders and everybody to recognize and understand, okay, let's collaborate. Let's get going on fixing this.
One of the things that where people often fail is where they try and go big bang and go, right, we're going from it's all being isolated to everything being visible straight away and changing everybody in the entire organization all at once. And that generally ends up in a bit of a mess because you have so many pockets of resistance. People will always find a reason to not do something if they can, because the natural human thing is to do it the easiest way they can, right? And so I used to do it like that and it was really easy. Now you're asking me to do this. Oh, it's a bit tricky. I don't really want to do it. Finding the champions within the organization who want that transparency, who need that transparency, who need the data coming through are the teams to start with. You start with those teams and you bring those into the organization and then they can champion it across the rest of the organization and move it forward. So you cannot try and do that culture change like that. It will not work.
Have you seen organizations try and go big bang on it before? And
loads of times.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen it so many times where what they'll do is they'll often say, actually, we've got this perfect way of managing projects and it requires this amount of data to be captured in order for us to be able to capture every type of project we could ever possibly capture. And it requires all of these stages and all of these decision points and all of these documents to be produced. And the user looks at it and goes, what? I mean, literally, you'll put it in front of users and they'll go, what are you asking me to do? I have no clue what you're doing. Literally no clue, because you're putting it in front of people who aren't necessarily project professionals. So you're designing, a project professional has gone and designed a process for a non-project professional. Brilliant. Well done, lads. Guess what? It didn't work. You have to do it and bring the people on the journey with you. And you have to say to them, what is causing you pain? Okay, can I give you something that helps you to fix that? Can I give you something to help you fix that? Then build on it. And you gradually build that process as you go through.
Exactly. And I think just to add to that, if you try to roll something out big bang, the scale of what can go wrong as an order of magnitude is bigger. We've spoken about the resistance to change and culture change and stuff like that. Culture change can be difficult enough with a team who are on board with something like this. There is still a change process they go into and there's still likely to be some resistance. Try managing that across a 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 strong organization and managing everyone resisting at once. So what we normally see as a best practice is, as Ross was saying, you get your champions on board, you get a core group of people who are going to go along on this journey with you, you go through that period of change with them, and generally what you find is people look over the shoulder and go, oh, they seem to be having a great time with their projects. What are they doing? And so all of a sudden that resistance can be broken down easier because you found that core group of people who can, at an organization level, show it to the rest of their colleagues and their departments. Look, this has worked for us. And so it's all about breaking it down. I mean, everything that we do in life, if it's too big, if it's too much of a challenge, break it down. And so by managing the scale of that, you can make sure that you're setting the foundations for success and you're not walking into an organizational nightmare in terms of change by bringing everyone at once.
And you bring in a champion. You bring on, let's say you bring in a team that champion a product. Do you know, people love telling people when they've done really cool stuff. Just do. It's just the nature of a human. They love saying, look what we've managed to do. Look how we've improved by doing this thing. And if you can do that, even in a small pocket, it really, really helps get that across the organization, because they'll go out and go, look what we've done. It's really cool. And everyone go, oh yeah, that's quite nice. Let's see if we can do it, and that is the best way to get the cultural change working. You can drive it from the top if you want to. And we always have to have sponsorship from the top. You really do need an executive champion, somebody at the top saying, we need to have better management information, or we need your processes to be better, or we've got to save this money, or whatever. You've got to have a corporate champion sitting at the top that's driving it, but you also have to have champions pushing it from the bottom.
And I think that domino effect, it doesn't just happen at the bottom in those teams. It can happen at the top as well. It might be a very straightforward example, but as a senior manager, you're going into a board meeting and you've got your house in order. You know what's going on. You can answer all the difficult questions. Your management information is solid. All the other departmental leaders are looking around and, it took us hours to do that. I can't answer that question if they come to me and they ask that question. So that domino effect, that snowballing effect of people seeing best practices elsewhere and seeing people maybe not pulling their hair out, or it's a breeze for them because of the processes and the best practices they've got in place, really does have an effect top to bottom. It's not just at the bottom.
We've seen it, Craig, with examples, haven't we? Where we I remember going to an organization where they got a team who were effectively using Verto. It was kind of a department that really embraced our product. And exactly that, their senior manager would go to a board and he'd have all of his ducks in a row, everything done. Okay. And then you talk to the other execs in the room, and they have a board every 4 weeks. It takes him 6 weeks to get the information for the other execs, takes 6 weeks to gather the information for the board that happens every 4 weeks. So they're behind every single time they do it.
It's out of date as soon as they walk in the room.
Exactly. And it's like, how does that even work? How can it take you 6 weeks to create information for a board that happens every 4 weeks? It doesn't compute. Whereas, this guy was walking in and he'd run a few reports before he walked in and just gone, there you go. And some of them even just put it up on the screen. Just go, there you go. Exactly. That's what it looks like.
The one other thing to mention, though, is that it's not a loose process where there's no assurance wrapped around it. And I think that's one of the big things about having a tool in place as well, is that you can embed the assurance, the governance, the authorization that you need. It takes you much less time to get to the information that you're at, but you still have the confidence that it's been reviewed, it's accurate, it's quality information. You're not sacrificing quality and assurance for speed and efficiency. It's all one package.
And you're right, but that has to be a balance, though, doesn't it?
Yes.
Because if you wrap too much around it, again, you get the resistance that just goes, whoa, all you've done is take something that was a bunch of spreadsheets and wrapped it now that I have 7 different processes and 6 different decision points that I have to go through to get something done. So
Exactly.
There's a balance to be had there, and that's often a tricky bit thing to get right. And again, that's years and years of experience of just going, that's not going to work. That's going. You can almost just see them now. Go, yeah, that's really good. Or whoa.
Yeah, and we work with clients that have a lot of governance and a lot of red tape, and over time, you will generally find they come back to us to go, we need to simplify this. This is too much. This is not giving us what we need. And so you're right, having that balance, learning fast, failing quickly, succeeding just as quickly as well, by making sure that you've got a balance between that assurance and that governance, but it's not overbearing, it's not slowing you down, it's not causing other problems around it as well. So that balancing act's really important.
So we would have to, supply a quite a high level of consultancy when it comes to selling something like the tool that we provide. It is not just a thanks very much, see you later kind of thing. There's a lot of guidance that goes along with it. Right?
We've been doing this for over 15 years, and the people that we bring on board also have experience in doing this as well. So it's only right that we pass on best practice from what we're learning from our past experiences. Whether or not they take on that it is another story. But you're right, there is a degree of ongoing and constant support, guidance, expertise that we're constantly passing on at every level to make sure that the people that are bringing in a PPM tool are learning from the ways that have been paved before, which is what we teach in terms of when we're talking about implementing a tool. A big element that often gets forgotten is lessons learned. And so learning lessons and understanding what went wrong before, what went well before, should hopefully lead to you doing things better in the future. And that's part of what we do, definitely.
Fabulous. I'd like to thank you both so much for co-hosting with me on this very first episode of ours. We'd really like to encourage you to subscribe to this podcast. There'll be more episodes coming out, thick and fast, we hope. Do find us on our Vimeo and YouTube channels and on our social channels as well, predominantly LinkedIn. So thank you very much and goodbye.